Welcome to Watch the Right Film, the show we discuss, debate, and review black film. This is a review of the new Ride Along 2 film starring Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. Hit it!
Yeah, Boogie, what up? Boogie, what up? Boogie, what up? Hey, hey, niggas say doing what? Doing what? Hey, but I bet they don't do it like this.
As always, I'm your host, DJ Thurston. And now I went into this film Ride Along 2 thinking I didn't want to categorize it the way I did the first Ride Along, because in the first Ride Along I just automatically just declared it a sort of a riff or a rift or a sort of like a knockoff of 21 Jump Street. In this film, I didn't want to do that, but it was kind of hard not to because it really felt a lot like Rush Hour 2. I don't know if you remember Rush Hour 2, but it sort of had sort of the same kind of elements. The sort of the chemistry and the dynamic sort of felt the same between Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. But in this film, I mean, there was a couple of things I laughed at. There's a scene where it's almost sort of like it has a Grand Theft Auto feel, and that was kind of funny. There's a scene where Kevin Hart does this thing with a phone and ringtones, and that was actually really funny. That was probably the funniest thing in the film. But other than that, it really I can't even say it fell apart because it never really got up to anything, and I really didn't have any sort of expectations going into this film. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I did have a little expectations because I just kind of was hoping that this film could do something a little different, not even necessarily be more complex, but just be more funnier. It's like if you're Kevin Hart, you're the producers of this film, you're the writers of this film, because they brought pretty much the same team back together. So if you're all these people, if you see the first Ride Along, why would you not want to at least try to make something a little bit different, a little bit better, a little more funnier, you know? And they just sort of kind of went for the same thing. It's just like, instead of going off the 21 Jump Street, we're going to go off Rush Hour 2 and sort of, you know, steal sort of certain elements from this. And most buddy cop films are sort of that way, you know, because the first one was Kevin Hart trying to be a cop, and this one is him, I guess, sort of being a cop, and that's where you get that sort of Rush Hour 2 dynamic. But I mean, I don't know if it feels like everyone was in a generic cop movie. You know, there's a Cuban drug lord. We have to stop him. We need to go to this particular place. We need to assemble a team and stop this drug dealer. You know what I mean? That's sort of like just a really basic generic plot. And I know after the success of the first movie, they wanted to just get this one rolling and get another one, you know, in motion, period. But God, like I wish that there was some sort of creativity to this film. Like there isn't much of anything. Like there's a scene with alligator, and you watch it, and you're just like, why is this happening? Because they have the alligator scene mixed with like a dance number, and so you have this cross-cutting going on that is just really unnecessary. It's horrible. Like you sit there and you watch this film, and you're like, why is this going? This is not funny. Why is this happening right now? And granted, there's going to be some people that's going to watch this film and going to love it. It was the #1 movie this weekend, and that's good. You know, congratulations. I'm glad to see, black people making money. I'm glad to see, black movie stars being able to sell out stuff. But we have to do more than just sell out films. We have to be able to, come up with some quality. We can't just go off of a name. We got Ride Along, so people are going to remember that. So let's push out a second one because people love Ice Cube. People love Kevin Hart. Let's just put this together and boom. Because I'm pretty sure if this movie does well, we'll see a Ride Along 3. We'll see this franchise continue. And not only will it continue, it's going to be the same kind of garbage that they brought in the first one that they brought in the second one. Like I said, there's a couple funny parts, and those funny parts are probably funny enough to where I think people will just sort of neglect all the crap that's around it, or sort of how the blandness to it, because it's very bland. It's just like, Centrella bread. Like it's just really plain. It's bread, but it's crappy bread. It has a lot of holes. It's very porous. Most comedies have sort of generic plots and generic things, but the funny parts of the film, the comedians in the film, they raise this sort of regular dumb and boring plots to a whole nother level because they do creative things. They're interesting and they're funny. This film was not that funny. I would sit there and I was watching, and at some parts I sat there and I just watched, and there was other people around me that laughed. You know, it was a packed theater, and some people laughed, but I mean, my God, like no one's gonna remember Ride Along 2. And you have a film with Kevin Hart and Ice Cube, and one of the things that that made me sort of anticipatory for this film is that there was an interview where Kevin Hart said this was 100 times better. It's 100 times better. It's bigger. It's this and that. And yeah, they put more money into it. You could tell they put more money into it, but you know, just throwing money at an idea, or I'm sorry, money at something that doesn't have an idea, that doesn't constitute for a sequel. You know, so I mean, I gave the first one one black fist. I'm gonna give this one one black fist as well. I mean, it's like I said, it's the same movie. Instead of going left, it's going right. And I guess I could talk about Kevin Hart because it felt like everyone else was in this bland, generic comedy, and Kevin Hart was just doing improv at Second City or something, because he was his the things that he do, his Kevin Hart, his sort of his Kevin Hart isms, they were extreme. They were on a whole nother level to where he just kept going on and on and on, and you were wondering like when it was no complexity to his character. You know, they had a scene where they tried to explain why he's having these Kevin Hart moments, but it wasn't suffice. You know, so I'm gonna give this film a one fist raise, and that's all I really can say about this film. I mean, if you like it, you know, hats off to you that you can sit through this bland comedy and enjoy it. But I mean, you know, I just want, you know, better films made. So that's my review of Ride Along 2.